The twin suns of Iridian Prime were setting behind the tall buildings of the diplomatic quarter. Tamine watched from his hiding spot under an old bridge. He was 14 years old, thin and dirty, with messy black hair and torn clothes. This bridge had been his home for the past 3 years, ever since his parents died in a transport accident. Nobody cared about a homeless human boy in a place filled with important aliens and powerful diplomats. Tamine's stomach growled loudly. He had not eaten anything since yesterday morning, when he found half a sandwich in a trash bin. He needed to go to the forest again. The alien forest was dangerous, but it was also where Tamine could find things that others threw away. Sometimes he found food containers that still had something inside. Sometimes he found broken equipment that he could trade for money. The security guards never went deep into the forest because it was too dangerous. That made it perfect for Tamine. He waited until the streets became quiet. Then he grabbed his old backpack and started walking toward the forest edge. The backpack had holes in it, but it still worked. Inside, he kept a small knife, a broken flashlight that only worked sometimes, and a cooling unit he found 2 weeks ago. The cooling unit was damaged, but Tamine thought he might fix it someday. The forest entrance had a big sign that said Danger, Restricted Area. Tamine ignored it like he always did. He slipped through a gap in the fence and entered the forest. The trees here were not like earth trees. They were tall and strange, with leaves that glowed in the dark. Some plants moved when he walked past them. Other plants made weird sounds. Tamine had learned which plants were safe and which ones would hurt him. He walked deeper into the forest, following the paths he knew. The glowing plants gave enough light to see, but he still moved carefully. One wrong step could mean falling into a hole or touching a poisonous plant. Tamine had lived on the streets long enough to know that being careful kept you alive. After walking for about an hour, Tamine heard something strange. It was a deep sound, like a roar, but also like a cry for help. The sound was coming from somewhere ahead. Tamine stopped walking. His first thought was to turn around and leave. Dangerous animals lived in this forest. But the sound came again, and this time Tamine heard pain in it. Something was hurt and suffering. Tamine stood still for a moment, thinking. Nobody had ever helped him when he needed it. When his parents died, nobody cared. When he was hungry and cold, people looked away. But Tamine remembered how that felt. He remembered wishing someone would help. He could not leave if something was suffering, and he could do something about it. He followed the sound through the thick plants and strange trees. The roaring got louder. Then Tamine pushed through some large leaves and stopped completely. His mouth fell open in shock. There was a dragon in front of him, a real dragon. It was huge, maybe 20 feet long, with scales that looked silver and blue in the glowing light. The dragon had large wings and a long tail, but the dragon was trapped. A massive plant had wrapped around its body. The plant had thick vines covered in crystal-like thorns. These vines were wrapped around the dragon's wings, legs, and body so tight that the dragon could barely move. Tamine recognized the plant. It was a thorn weaver, one of the most dangerous plants in the forest. He had seen smaller ones before and always stayed far away from them. This one was enormous. The vines were slowly getting tighter, and Tamine could see a strange liquid dripping from the thorns. That liquid was poison. It made victims weak and unable to move. The dragon's eyes turned toward Tamine. They were intelligent eyes, not animal eyes. The dragon was breathing hard, clearly exhausted and in pain. Then Tamine noticed something else. On the dragon's chest was a symbol, a badge made of gold and silver. Tamine had seen that symbol before on the news screens in the city. It was a diplomatic insignia. This was not just any dragon. This was a dragon diplomat, someone important from another world. For a second, Tamine thought about running away. What could a homeless boy do against a plant this big? If he tried to help and failed, the plant might trap him too. Then he would die here, and nobody would even know or care. But when he looked at the dragon's eyes again, he saw the same desperation he had felt so many times. The feeling of being alone and helpless, hoping someone would care enough to help. Tamine took a deep breath and stepped closer. The dragon watched him with surprise. Maybe the dragon thought Tamine would run away. Maybe the dragon had never seen a human this young in the forest. Tamine walked around the Thornweaver carefully, looking at how the vines were wrapped. The plant was huge and strong. The thorns were sharp and covered in poison. But Tamine had lived in these forests for 3 years. He knew things about these plants that others did not. He remembered something important. Thornweavers were sensitive to cold. When it got cold, they pulled back and became slow. Tamine reached into his backpack and pulled out the broken cooling unit. He had found it near a repair shop and kept it because he thought the parts might be useful. The unit was damaged and did not work properly anymore, but maybe, just maybe, it could work one more time. Tamine pressed the power button. Nothing happened. He hit it against his hand a few times, the way he had seen repair workers do with broken equipment. Suddenly, the unit made a buzzing sound, and cold air came out of one end. It was not much, but it was something. The dragon made a sound, like it was trying to speak. Then Tamine heard words inside his head. It was not a voice he heard with his ears. It was like the words appeared in his mind. Young human, you should leave. This plant is too dangerous. Save yourself. Tamine looked up at the dragon's face. He saw that the dragon was serious. The dragon actually wanted him to run away and be safe, even though it meant the dragon would die. That made Tamine more sure about his choice. I am not leaving, Tamine said out loud. His voice sounded small in the big forest. I know how to beat this plant. Just stay still and trust me. The dragon's eyes showed surprise again. Then something else appeared in those eyes. It looked like hope. Tamine stepped closer to the Thornweaver vines and pointed the cooling unit at them. This was going to be difficult and dangerous, but Tamine had already decided he was going to save this dragon, no matter what it took. Tamine held the cooling unit steady in his hands. The cold air coming out was weak, but it was working. He pointed it at the first vine wrapped around the dragon's left wing. The vine was thick, almost as wide as his arm, and covered with sharp crystal thorns. He had to be very careful. One wrong move and those thorns would cut him, and the poison would get into his blood. The dragon watched him silently. Tamine could feel the dragon's eyes following his every movement. He aimed the cold air at where the vine connected to the main plant body. He had seen Thornweavers react to cold before. They did not like it. When it got cold, they moved slower and their grip became weaker. After 2 minutes of cold air, the vine started to change color. It went from bright green to a darker, duller green. Then it began to loosen just a little bit. Tamine felt a spark of hope in his chest. This might actually work. What is your name, young human? The dragon's voice appeared in his head again. It was a deep voice, calm and gentle despite the pain the dragon must be feeling. Tamine, he answered, not taking his eyes off the vine. What is yours? I am Ryujin, chief diplomat of the Draconis Empire. I have negotiated peace treaties across 5 star systems. I have spoken with kings and emperors. Yet here I am, trapped by a plant, being saved by a child. There was no anger in the voice. Instead, Tamine heard something like wonder. I am not just a child, Tamine said, moving the cooling unit to another section of the vine. I have lived in these forests for 3 years. I know them better than most adults. 3 years? Where are your parents? Your guardians? Ryujin asked. Dead. Transport accident. After that, nobody wanted me, so I learned to take care of myself. Tamine's voice was flat. He had told this story to himself so many times that it did not hurt anymore. It was just a fact, like the sky being blue or the sun being hot. The dragon was quiet for a moment. Then the voice came again, softer this time. I am sorry, Tamine. No child should have to survive alone. The first vine finally loosened enough for Tamine to pull it away from the dragon's wing. He had to use both hands because the vine was heavy and sticky. When it came free, the dragon's wing moved slightly. Ryujin made a sound of relief, but there were many more vines to go. Tamine counted at least 15 thick vines wrapped around different parts of the dragon's body. His cooling unit was already making strange sounds. It was old and broken, and he did not know how much longer it would work. He had to move faster. Tell me about the Thornweaver, Ryujin said. How did you learn about its weakness to cold? Tamine moved to the next vine, This one wrapped around Ryujin's front leg. I watch and I learn. That is how you survive out here. I saw a thorn weaver catch a small animal once. The animal died, but I stayed and watched what happened. Later, when night came and the temperature dropped, the plant pulled back and became slower. I remembered that. You are very smart, Ryujin said. Most adults would panic or give up. You analyze and plan. Panicking does not help. I learned that a long time ago. Taemin kept working on the vine. The cold air was making his hands numb, but he did not stop. As he worked, Taemin talked to keep both of them focused. He told Ryujin about the forest, about which plants were safe to eat and which ones would make you sick. He explained how some of the glowing plants were actually carnivorous and would grab anything that touched them. He described the strange animals he had seen, creatures with too many legs or eyes that glowed in the dark. Ryujin listened and asked questions. The dragon told Taemin about other worlds, about planets made entirely of water and planets where the rocks floated in the air. He described the great crystal cities of the Draconis Empire, where dragons live in towers that touch the clouds. He talked about the different alien species he had met, some friendly and some not so friendly. Time passed slowly. Taemin's arms ached from holding the cooling unit. His hands were so cold they were turning blue. Sweat dripped down his face even though the air around him was cold. But he did not stop. He freed the dragon's front leg, then the back leg, then another section of wing. Suddenly, the cooling unit made a loud cracking sound. The cold air stopped completely. Taemin shook it and hit it against his palm, but nothing happened. The unit was dead. He looked at the dragon. There were still 7 vines wrapped tight around Ryujin's body and tail. "It is all right, Taemin," Ryujin said gently. "You tried. You should go now before the plant reacts." "No." Taemin's voice was firm. He put the broken cooling unit back in his backpack. Then he looked around the forest floor. There had to be another way. He spotted some blue flowers growing near a tree. He had seen those flowers before. They produced a liquid that was extremely cold to touch. It was not as cold as a cooling unit, but it might work. He ran over and carefully picked several flowers, holding them by the stems. The liquid dripped from their petals like water. Taemin brought the flowers back and squeezed them over the vines. The cold liquid dripped onto the plant. The thornweaver did not like this at all. The vines twitched and moved, trying to get away from the cold liquid, but they could not move far because they were still holding the dragon. This was good and bad. Good because it meant the liquid was working. Bad because the thornweaver was now defensive. Taemin saw the thorns start to extend further out, becoming even sharper. He had to work faster. He ran back to collect more flowers. Then more. His hands got cut by the thorns several times as he worked to free each vine. Small drops of blood fell on the forest floor, but Taemin ignored the pain. Pain was something he had learned to live with a long time ago. One vine came free, then another, then 2 more. Ryujin was able to move more now, helping to push against the vines from the inside. Dragon and human boy worked together, fighting against the deadly plant. The thornweaver began to react more violently. One vine swung at Taemin and almost hit him. He jumped back just in time. Another vine tried to grab his leg, but Ryujin used his now-free front leg to knock it away. "Behind you!" Ryujin's voice shouted in Taemin's head. Taemin turned and saw a vine coming right at his face. He dropped to the ground and rolled to the side. The vine smashed into a tree instead. Pieces of bark flew everywhere. This plant was angry now and fighting back hard. But Taemin did not give up. He collected more flowers, working around the swinging vines. He squeezed the cold liquid onto each remaining vine. His whole body hurt. His hands were bleeding and numb. His clothes were torn in new places. But he kept going. Finally, after what felt like hours, but was probably only 2 hours total, the last vine came loose. Ryujin pushed hard with all his strength and broke free from the thornweaver completely. The dragon collapsed on the forest floor, breathing hard. The thornweaver's vines waved in the air for a moment, then slowly pulled back into itself, defeated. Taemin sat down hard on the ground. His legs were shaking. His hands were covered in small cuts and blood. He was exhausted beyond anything he had ever felt. But they had done it. The dragon was free. Ryujin slowly turned his great head to look at Taemin. The dragon's silver-blue scales were scratched and damaged. There were wounds where the thorns had dug in deep. But the dragon's eyes were clear and focused. "You saved my life," Ryujin said, and his voice in Taemin's mind was filled with emotion. A homeless human child succeeded where trained soldiers would have failed. "I am in your debt, Taemin. By the laws of my people, I owe you a life debt." Taemin did not fully understand what that meant. He was too tired to think clearly. He just nodded and said, "You are welcome. Nobody should die alone if someone can help." Those simple words seemed to affect the dragon deeply. Ryujin was quiet for a long moment, just looking at this small, dirty, bleeding human boy who had risked everything for a stranger. Ryujin tried to stand, but his legs were still weak from the poison. The dragon stumbled and almost fell. Taemin quickly moved to his side, putting his small hands against the dragon's massive leg to help steady him. It was like a mouse trying to help an elephant, but Ryujin appreciated the gesture. "The poison will wear off slowly," Taemin said. "We need to find water and a safe place to rest. Can you walk if we go slow?" "I will try," Ryujin answered. The dragon took a careful step, then another. His legs shook, but held his weight. "Which way to the city?" Taemin pointed in a direction. "That way, but it is very far. It will take us all night to get there, maybe longer with you injured." "Then we should start moving," Ryujin said. They began the long journey through the forest. Taemin led the way, checking the path ahead for dangers. Ryujin followed slowly behind, his wings dragging on the ground because he was too weak to fold them properly. Every few minutes, they had to stop so Ryujin could rest. During one of these rest stops, Taemin found a small stream. The water was clean and safe to drink. He helped Ryujin get to the water, and they both drank deeply. Taemin also found some fruit growing on a nearby bush. He knew this fruit was safe because he had eaten it many times before. He offered some to Ryujin. "Can dragons eat this?" Taemin asked. "We can eat almost anything," Ryujin replied. "Thank you." As they ate, Ryujin asked more questions about Taemin's life. The boy told him about living under the bridge, about the cold nights and the hungry days. He talked about the other homeless people he sometimes saw, but most of them did not talk to him. He was just a kid, and everyone had their own problems. "Why did you help me?" Ryujin asked suddenly. "You had no reason to risk your life. You do not know me. I am not even human." Taemin thought about this question for a moment. "I helped because it was the right thing to do. When I was really hungry or really cold, I used to hope that someone would help me. Nobody ever did. So I promised myself that if I ever saw someone who needed help and I could do something, I would. It does not matter if you are human or dragon or anything else. Pain is pain. Suffering is suffering." Those words hung in the air between them. Ryujin looked at this homeless boy with new understanding. Here was someone who had every reason to be bitter and angry at the world, yet he still chose kindness. Here was someone with nothing, yet he gave everything to save a stranger. They continued walking through the night. The twin suns rose slowly, painting the sky in colors of orange and purple. By the time the suns were fully up, they could see the tall buildings of the diplomatic quarter in the distance. They were close now, but something strange was happening. As they got closer to the city, Taemin could hear loud sounds. There were sirens blaring and ships flying overhead. Bright searchlights swept across the forest. Something was wrong. "They are looking for me," Ryujin said quietly. "I have been missing for 2 days. They probably think I am dead." 2 days. Taemin looked shocked. "The poison made you sleep that long?" "The Thornweaver's poison is very strong. I was unconscious when it first trapped me. I only woke up a few hours before you found me." As they emerged from the forest edge, a security patrol spotted them immediately. The patrol consisted of 4 guards in armored suits, carrying weapons. They saw the dragon and the boy, and for a moment, everyone just stared at each other in shock. Then chaos erupted. The guards started shouting into their communication devices. More ships appeared in the sky. Within minutes, they were surrounded by dozens of security personnel, medical teams, diplomats, and even news media drones with cameras. A tall human man in an expensive suit pushed through the crowd. This was Ambassador Jaiwin, the head of the human delegation on Viridian Prime. He looked at Ryujin with relief. Then his eyes fell on Tamine. His expression changed to confusion. Dragon Diplomat Ryujin, we are so relieved you're alive, Jaiwin said formally. We had search teams looking everywhere. How did you escape? I did not escape, Ryujin said clearly, his voice tired but firm. I was rescued. This human boy saved my life. Everyone turned to look at Tamine. The boy suddenly felt very aware of how he looked. His clothes were torn and dirty. His hands were covered in dried blood from the thorn cuts. His hair was messy and full of leaves. He looked exactly like what he was, a homeless street kid. This child, another human diplomat said with doubt in her voice. Ambassador, this boy is one of the homeless ones who live under the bridges. How could he possibly rescue a dragon diplomat? Tamine felt his face turn red. He wanted to run away and hide. But Ryujin made a deep rumbling sound that made everyone go quiet. This boy, who you dismissed and ignored, did what all of your trained soldiers and security teams could not do. He found me trapped by a thornweaver plant deep in the forest. He risked his life to free me using nothing but his knowledge, courage, and determination. He spent hours working to break me free, getting injured in the process. Then he guided me through the dangerous forest all night to bring me back safely. Another person pushed through the crowd. This was Hai Unsik, the head of planetary security. He was a stern-looking man with sharp eyes. With respect, Dragon Diplomat, we had over 50 trained personnel searching those forests. How did a child succeed where they failed? Perhaps because he was not looking for glory or following orders, Ryujin replied. He was simply doing what was right. Perhaps because he knows these forests better than any of your teams. Or perhaps because he has something your people seem to lack, the willingness to risk everything for someone in need, expecting nothing in return. The criticism in Ryujin's words was clear. The human diplomats looked uncomfortable. The media drones moved closer, recording everything. This was going to be a major story. A medical team tried to approach Ryujin, but the dragon stopped them. Before I receive any treatment, I must make an announcement. By the ancient laws of the Draconis Empire, I hereby declare that I owe Tamine a life debt. His courage and selflessness saved my life. This debt is sacred and binding. Gasps went through the crowd. Even Tamine, who did not know much about dragon culture, could tell this was something very important. Ambassador Jaiwin's face went pale. Other diplomats started whispering urgently to each other. A female alien with blue skin and 4 arms stepped forward. She wore the uniform of the Galactic Press Corps. Dragon Diplomat Ryujin, can you clarify for our viewers? A life debt is the highest honor in Draconis culture, correct? Yes, Ryujin confirmed. It means I am bound by honor to protect, support, and care for Tamine. It also means that any insult or harm to him is an insult and harm to me and the entire Draconis Empire. More gasps, more whispers. The significance was huge. Suddenly, this homeless human boy was under protection of one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy. Ambassador Jaiwin looked like he wanted to disappear. His delegation had been ignoring homeless humans on this planet for years, and now one of them was connected to a dragon diplomat. Hyunsik stepped forward again. We will need to take statements from both of you. There will be an investigation into how this incident occurred and why our search teams failed to locate you. Of course, Ryujin agreed. But first, Tamine needs medical attention. Look at his hands. Look at his injuries. He suffered these wounds, saving me. Only then did the medical teams turn their attention to Tamine. A doctor knelt down and gently took his hands to examine them. These cuts need to be cleaned and treated immediately. Some of them are quite deep. Young man, why did you not say you were hurt? Tamine shrugged. I have been hurt before. It is not that bad. The simple way he said those words made several people in the crowd look away uncomfortably. This was a child who was so used to pain and injury that he considered deep thorn cuts as not that bad. What did that say about the society that had allowed him to live this way? The media drones were capturing everything. Within an hour, the story would spread across the entire galaxy. A homeless human boy had saved a dragon diplomat. The boy had succeeded where trained professionals failed. And now that boy was under protection of the Draconis Empire through a sacred life debt. As medical teams worked on both Ryujin and Taming, as diplomats made urgent calls to their superiors, as security personnel tried to control the growing crowd, one thing became very clear. Nothing would ever be the same again. Not for Taming, not for the human delegation, and not for how the galaxy viewed humanity. Ambassador Jaiwin stood off to the side, watching everything unfold. His career had just become very complicated. The human delegation had a lot of explaining to do. The medical center was busier than Taming had ever seen any place before. Doctors and nurses moved quickly between rooms. The walls were white and clean, so different from the dirty bridge where he usually slept. They had put him in a private room with a real bed that was soft and comfortable. His hands were wrapped in clean bandages. They had given him medicine that made the pain go away. They had even given him new clothes and let him take a hot shower. Taming sat on the bed, feeling strange. Everything was happening too fast. Just yesterday, he was a nobody. Today, people were treating him like he was important. He did not understand it. A nurse came in with food on a tray. Real food, not scraps in the trash. There was rice, meat, vegetables, fruit, and a drink that tasted sweet. Taming ate slowly at first, then faster. He could not remember the last time he had eaten so much food. While he was eating, a screen on the wall turned on by itself. It showed a news program. Taming saw his own face on the screen. The image showed him and Ryujin emerging from a forest. The news reporter was talking excitedly. This incredible story is spreading across the galaxy today. A 14-year-old homeless human boy named Taming rescued dragon diplomat Ryujin from certain death in the dangerous forest of Iridian Prime. The boy used his knowledge of the local plants and his own resourcefulness to free the diplomat from a deadly thornweaver plant. In response, Ryujin has declared a sacred life debt, one of the highest honors in Draconi's culture. The screen changed to show different aliens talking about the story. A green-skinned alien with large eyes said, "This shows the best of what humans can be. Compassion without expecting reward. Courage in the face of danger. This boy represents humanity's true strength." Another alien, this one covered in fur, added, "But also shows humanity's failure. How could they let their own children live on the streets? How many other talented young humans are being ignored and forgotten?" The screen switched again. This time it showed Ambassador Jaiwin. At a press conference, he looked uncomfortable and tired. Reporters from many different species were asking him questions. "Ambassador Jaiwin, how do you explain that a homeless child succeeded where your trained security teams failed?" One reporter asked. "We are investigating that question thoroughly." Jaiwin replied carefully. "We are grateful that Diplomat Ryujin is safe. But will you address the issue of homeless human children on Iridian Prime?" Another reporter pressed. "Your delegation has ignored this problem for years." "We are reviewing our policies," Jaiwin said, but he did not sound convincing. Taming watched all of this with growing confusion. He had just helped someone who needed help. Why was it such a big deal? Why were people across the galaxy talking about it? A knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. A woman entered the room. She had kind eyes and was wearing simple clothes. She smiled at Taming. "Hello, Taming. My name is Salmon. I work with an organization that helps children. Can I talk with you for a few minutes?" Taming nodded. Salmon sat down in a chair near the bed. "I have been trying to help homeless children on this planet for 5 years," she said. "But nobody listened to me. Nobody cared. Now, because of what you did, everyone is suddenly paying attention. I want you to know that I am sorry. I am sorry that we failed you and other children like you." "It is okay," Taming said quietly. "I survived." "But you should not have had to just survive," Salmon replied. "Children should be safe and cared for. What you did was amazing, Taming. But the fact that you had to live that way in the first place is shameful." Before Taming could respond, there was another knock. This time, Several people entered. One was a tall alien with purple skin and 3 eyes. Another was a floating sphere that glowed softly. There was also a human man in an expensive suit carrying a briefcase. Tamin, the purple alien said in a deep voice, I represent the Zenthori Educational Institute. We would like to offer you a full scholarship to study at our academy. We train the best students in the galaxy. The glowing sphere spoke next, its voice high and musical. The Technology Guild wishes to offer you an apprenticeship. Your resourcefulness and problem-solving skills are exactly what we look for. The human man stepped forward. My name is Daehoon. I represent several wealthy families who want to adopt you. They can provide you with a good home, education, and opportunities. More people came into the room. Each one had an offer. Money, jobs, education, homes. They all talked at once, competing with each other. Tamin felt overwhelmed. His head started to hurt. Stop! A powerful voice filled the room. Everyone went silent. Ryujin entered the room, his large body barely fitting through the doorway. The dragon scales had been cleaned, and his wounds were bandaged. He looked much better than before. All of you leave now. The people looked at each other nervously, but they all left one by one. Dragons were not to be argued with, especially dragon diplomats. Soon, only Ryujin, Tamin, and Saman remained in the room. Ryujin moved closer to the bed and lowered his great head, so he could look at Tamin eye to eye. Are you all right, young friend? I do not understand what is happening. Tamin admitted. Why do all these people suddenly care about me? Yesterday, I was invisible. Today, everyone wants something from me. You became famous, Ryujin explained gently. Your story is being told on every planet, every station, every ship in this part of the galaxy. You inspired people. You showed them something beautiful and true. Now everyone wants to be part of your story. But I do not want to be famous, Tamin said. I just wanted to help you. I did not do it for rewards or attention. I know, Ryujin said. That is exactly why your story matters so much. True heroism is not about seeking glory. It is about doing what is right because it is right. Saman spoke up. Tamin, you are going to receive many offers in the coming days. Some will be genuine. Others will be from people who just want to use your fame for themselves. You need to think carefully about what you want. What I want. Tamin had never really thought about that before. His whole life had been about surviving day to day. He never had the luxury of thinking about what he wanted for the future. Over the next 3 days, the attention grew even bigger. More news stories appeared. Artists created paintings and songs about Tamin and Ryujin. Teachers in schools across the galaxy used their story as a lesson about courage and kindness. Stores started selling toys that looked like Tamin and Ryujin. The human delegation held multiple meetings. Ambassador Jaiwin announced new policies to help homeless humans on Viridian Prime and other diplomatic planets. But many people said he was only doing it because he was embarrassed, not because he truly cared. Hyunsik's investigation revealed that the security teams had not searched the deep forest areas because they were considered too dangerous. They had assumed that no one could survive there, so they did not look. The fact that a 14-year-old boy had been living and surviving in those areas for 3 years made them look very foolish. Through it all, Ryujin stayed close to Tamin. The dragon kept his promise about the life debt. He made sure Tamin was protected from the crowds and the media. He helped Tamin understand the offers that kept coming. He explained that Tamin could choose whatever future he wanted. On the 4th day, Tamin was sitting in his room when he saw another news report. This one showed other homeless children on Viridian Prime. They were still living under bridges, still digging through trash for food, still suffering. The reporter was interviewing them. What do you think about Tamin's story? The reporter asked a young girl who looked about 10 years old. I am happy for him, the girl said, but I wish someone would help the rest of us too. Those words hit Tamin hard. He had been so focused on his own confusion and all the attention that he had forgotten about the others, the other homeless children who were still out there, still struggling, still invisible to most people. That night, Tamin could not sleep. He kept thinking about that girl's words. He thought about all the cold nights, all the hungry days, all the times he felt alone and forgotten. He had been lucky. He had been in the right place at the right time to help Ryujin. But what about all the other children who were not lucky? An idea began to form in his mind. It was a big idea, maybe too big for someone like him. But the more he thought about it, the more he knew it was the right idea. He did not want to be special or different from the other homeless children. He wanted to use this moment, this attention, this opportunity to help them too. By morning, Taemin knew what he wanted to do. He asked to speak with Ryujin, Salmon, and Ambassador Jaiwin together. He had a request to make, and it was going to surprise everyone. The meeting room was large and filled with important people. Taemin felt small sitting in the big chair, but he tried not to show his nervousness. Ryujin sat beside him, the dragon's presence giving him strength. Across the table sat Ambassador Jaiwin, Salmon, and several other human officials. Representatives from other alien species were also present, watching through video screens on the walls. Ryujin had called this meeting at Taemin's request. The dragon had explained that today, Taemin would tell everyone what he wanted. The boy had refused all the offers so far, saying he needed time to think. Now, everyone was curious about what he would choose. Ambassador Jaiwin spoke first. Taemin, we are all here to listen to you. Whatever you decide, the human delegation will support you. We owe you that much at least. Taemin took a deep breath. His hands were still bandaged, but they hurt less now. He looked around at all the important faces staring at him. A week ago, none of these people would have given him a second glance. Now they were all waiting to hear what he had to say. I have thought a lot about all the offers, Taemin began. His voice was quiet but steady. Schools, money, adoption, jobs, they are all very generous. But I cannot accept any of them. Confused looks appeared on several faces. Jaiwin leaned forward. May I ask why not? Because accepting those things would only help me, Taemin explained. There are hundreds of other homeless children on Viridian Prime, thousands more on other planets. If I take a scholarship or get adopted, I become just one lucky kid. The others stay forgotten. Salmon's eyes began to water. She seemed to understand where Taemin was going with this. What I want, Taemin continued, is to use this attention to help all of them. I want to create a place where homeless children can go to be safe. A place where they can eat, sleep, learn, and have a chance at a better life. Not just on this planet, but on other planets too. The room was completely silent. Everyone stared at Taemin in shock. This was not what they expected. Most people would have jumped at the chance to improve their own lives. But Taemin was thinking about others instead of himself. Ryujin made a deep, rumbling sound that was the dragon equivalent of a proud laugh. I told you all that this boy was special. He proves it again. Taemin, Ambassador Jaiwin said slowly, what you are suggesting would require enormous resources. Buildings, staff, funding, organization across multiple planets. It would take years to set up. I know, Taemin replied. That is why I'm asking for help. I cannot do it alone. But if everyone who has offered me something could instead put those resources toward this project, we could actually make it happen. One of the alien representatives on the screen spoke up. It was a purple-skinned Zenthori who had offered the scholarship. The Zenthori Educational Institute would be willing to provide teachers and educational materials for such a project. The glowing sphere that represented the Technology Guild added, we can donate equipment and technology to help run these facilities. More voices joined in. Different species and organizations pledged support. Money, buildings, expertise, everything that would be needed. Taemin watched in amazement as his idea became real right before his eyes. But Ambassador Jaiwin still looked worried. Taemin, this is admirable. But if we do this, you will need to be involved in setting it up. You will need education and training yourself to help run such a project. What about your own future? My future is helping others, Taemin said simply. Ryujin told me that true heroism is doing what is right, because it is right. This feels right to me. Ryujin placed one large claw gently on the table near Taemin. I have a proposal. As part of my life debt to Tameen, I will personally oversee this project. The Dracones Empire will provide the initial funding and support. We will call it the Tameen Center. But Tameen himself will receive proper education and training, so he can eventually help lead this effort when he is older. The Tameen Center, Solomon repeated softly. I like that name. Ambassador Jaiwin nodded slowly. The human delegation will commit full support to this project. We will start with Viridian Prime and expand from there. He paused, then added quietly, we should have done this years ago. We failed our own people. Tameen is giving us a chance to do better. Over the next few weeks, things move quickly. The story of Tameen's choice spread across the galaxy, just like his rescue of Ryujin had. People were inspired all over again. This homeless boy who had nothing was using his moment of fame to help others instead of himself. Donations poured in from countless worlds and species. A large building near the diplomatic quarter was chosen for the first Tameen Center. It had been empty for years, but now it was being transformed. Workers installed beds, kitchens, classrooms, medical facilities, and recreational areas. The design included input from Tameen himself, who knew what homeless children actually needed. Tameen visited the construction site every day. He still found it hard to believe this was really happening. Ryujin often came with him, the dragon answering questions and making sure everything was done properly. One day, while they were watching workers install beds in one of the sleeping rooms, Tameen asked Ryujin a question that had been bothering him. Do you think I made the right choice? Sometimes I wonder if I should have just accepted the scholarship and tried to have a normal life. Ryujin was quiet for a moment before answering. When I was trapped in that forest, dying slowly, I had accepted my fate. I had lived for over 300 years. I had accomplished much. I thought my story was ending. Then you appeared, a child with nothing, who had every reason to walk away, but you stayed. You fought for hours to save me. Do you know what I learned from you that day? Tameen shook his head. I learned that the greatest strength is not power or wealth or knowledge. It is a willingness to help others even when it costs you everything. You had that strength as a homeless child in the forest. You have it now in this choice you made. That strength will change the galaxy far more than any scholarship could. 3 months after Tameen's rescue of Ryujin, the first Tameen Center officially opened. Hundreds of people attended the ceremony, including diplomats from dozens of species, news media from across the galaxy, and most importantly, dozens of homeless children who would be the first residents. Tameen stood at a podium in front of the building. He was wearing nice clothes now, and his hair was neatly cut. His hands had healed, though small scars remained as reminders of that night in the forest. He was still getting used to speaking in front of crowds, but Ryujin had helped him practice. I used to live under a bridge, Tameen began. I was cold, hungry, and alone. I know what it feels like to be invisible, to have people look right through you like you do not exist. The children who will live here know that feeling too. But starting today, they are not invisible anymore. Starting today, they have a home. He paused, looking at the faces in the crowd. I did not save Dragon Diplomat Ryujin because I wanted to be a hero or because I wanted rewards. I did it because I knew what it felt like to suffer alone, and I did not want anyone else to feel that way. That is what this center is about. It is about making sure no child has to face the world alone. The crowd applauded. Many people were crying, including Salmon and even Ambassador Jaiwin. The children who were entering their new home looked around with wonder and hope in their eyes. After the ceremony, Tameen gave tours of the facility. He showed the children their beds, their classrooms, the cafeteria where they would eat real meals every day. He introduced them to the teachers and counselors who would help them. He answered their questions and assured them they were safe now. One little girl, the same one Tameen had seen on the news report weeks ago, tugged on his sleeve. Is this real? We can really stay here. Yes, Tameen told her gently. This is your home now. You are not alone anymore. The girl hugged him tightly, and Tameen felt tears in his own eyes. This was why he had made his choice. This moment, right here, made everything worth it. As the sun set that evening, Tameen stood outside the Tameen Center with Ryujin. The dragon looked at the building with satisfaction. 5 more centers will open next year on different planets, Ryujin said. Your idea is spreading, Taemin. You have started something that will help countless children across the galaxy. We started it together, Taemin corrected. I could not have done any of this without you. Perhaps, Ryujin agreed, but I only helped because you saved my life first. And you did more than save my life, young friend. You reminded me and the entire galaxy what truly matters. Not treaties or politics or power, but simple compassion, the willingness to help someone in need. Taemin looked at the building, watching lights turn on in the windows as children settled into their new rooms. He thought about his own room inside, waiting for him. A real bed, clean sheets, his own space. He was one of the residents now, too, learning and growing alongside the others. Ryujin, Taemin said, that night in the forest when I found you, I never imagined it would lead to all of this. Neither did I, the dragon replied. But that is the nature of true kindness. One small act of compassion can spread like ripples in water, touching more lives than we can imagine. You threw a stone into the water that night, Taemin. These ripples will spread across the galaxy for generations. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the Taemin Center's lights glow warmly in the evening darkness. Inside, children who had been forgotten were now safe and cared for. Across the galaxy, plans were being made for more centers, more help, more hope. Taemin had been a homeless boy with nothing. He had saved a dragon diplomat from certain death, and now he was helping to save countless other children from the loneliness and suffering he had once known. His actions had indeed shocked all, not just by showing courage in the forest, but by revealing something even more powerful. He showed that the best of humanity was not found in strength or technology or conquest, but in the simple choice to help others, to share hope, and to ensure that no one had to suffer alone. The galaxy would remember his name not as a hero who sought glory, but as a boy who used his moment to light the way for others. And that legacy would shine far brighter than any medal or monument ever could.